Welcome to Hong Kong Brief. The content of the briefing includes Ex-UBS banker's new hedge fund to bet on share sale rebound. Lenovo bets AI will liven up sluggish PC market. Volkswagen investing $1.8 billion in Brazil, betting on hybrids. Messi plays 7 minutes, Ronaldo none as Miami lose 6-0 before flying to Hong Kong. Amer, backed by Anta Sports, rises in New York debut after $1.4 billion IPO. Ex-UBS banker's new hedge fund to bet on share sale rebound. Bloomberg. A former UBS banker is launching a hedge fund in Hong Kong, betting on a revival of stock sales in Asia. Pascal Gaudier said a European insurer is close to inking a multi-year deal to back his Viridian Asset Management with $150 million. Money raised from Asia-Pacific share sales tumbled last year to the lowest in at least a decade, according to data from Bloomberg. Viridian will likely focus on the Japanese, Indian, and South Korean markets in the first 2 or 3 years, before a rebound in share sales in Hong Kong and China. Lenovo bets AI will liven up sluggish PC market. Nikkei Asia. Lenovo, the world's largest PC maker, believes that PCs embedded with artificial intelligence, AI, chips will revive the sluggish PC market. The company's Asia-Pacific president stated that Lenovo has already started seeing a recovery in the PC market and expects growth to return soon. Lenovo is focusing on developing AI PCs in partnership with companies such as Microsoft and Intel. The company anticipates that AI PCs will encourage customers to refresh their PCs, as many of the devices purchased during the pandemic are now several years old. Lenovo also plans to strengthen its efforts in the Indian market, aiming to become the top PC seller in the country. Volkswagen investing $1.8 billion in Brazil, betting on hybrids. Bloomberg. Volkswagen plans to invest BRL 9 billion, $1.8 billion, in Brazil between 2026 and 2028 in a bid to electrify its vehicles in the country. The investment will target all 4 of VW's Brazilian factories, according to VW Brazil CEO Ciro Possebon. The news follows General Motors' announcement it would invest BRL 7 billion in the country by 2028. Messi plays 7 minutes, Ronaldo none as Miami lose 6-0 before flying to Hong Kong. South China Morning Post. Lionel Messi was reduced to spectating as his club Inter Miami suffered a 6-0 rout against Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia. Messi played only 7 minutes as a late substitute, while Cristiano Ronaldo was ruled out altogether due to a calf injury. Al Nassr inflicted a heavy defeat on Inter Miami, who held Messi back after he felt discomfort during their previous match. The match had been billed as a potential last dance between Messi and Ronaldo. Inter Miami will be traveling to Hong Kong for their next match against a local Premier League team. Amer, backed by Anta Sports, rises in New York debut after $1.4 billion IPO. South China Morning Post. Shares of Amer Sports, backed by Chinese sportswear maker Anta Sports Products, rose by 3.1% in New York on Thursday after its debut as a listed company. The Finland-based company closed at $13.40 per share, giving it a market value of $6.6 billion. Amer raised about $1.4 billion from the sale of 105 million shares, which will be used to fund its expansion plans in China and repay existing loans. Anta Sports holds a 52.7% stake in Amer Sports. The New York listing represents the largest stock offering by a China-owned company in the U.S. since ride-hailing giant Didi's $4.4 billion listing in 2021. Hong Kong stocks rise by most in week as Tencent, NetEase gain on game nods. South China Morning Post. Hong Kong stocks have risen after China approved a new batch of online video games, indicating a possible softening of the government's stance on the industry. The Hang Seng Index rose 1.8% to 15,843.09, while the Hang Seng Tech Index gained 2.1%. Major stocks including Tencent, Alibaba, and Baidu all saw gains, while Li Auto and Xpeng both surged after recording significant increases in January deliveries. Tencent, Nexon soar after approval for marquee game. Bloomberg. Chinese regulators have approved Tencent Holdings' mobile DNF game, which has been a long-awaited title that failed to pass regulatory approval for years. This approval is a big boost for Tencent's 2024 pipeline, as the company has been relying on years-old titles and is in need of new blockbusters. The approval comes at a time when the Chinese gaming market is facing a downturn and regulatory uncertainty. Nexon, which developed the game jointly with Tencent, saw its share surge in Tokyo. The approval suggests that Chinese regulators may be returning to business as usual in the gaming industry, despite concerns about regulatory intentions. Alibaba, SoftBank earnings due after U.S. tech giants disappoint. Bloomberg. Asia's tech giants, including Alibaba and Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation, are reporting earnings amid a cautious backdrop after choppy U.S. tech earnings. Alibaba is facing internal turmoil and a stock market rout, while SMIC, China's top chip maker, is a target of U.S. chip sanctions. SoftBank is expected to swing to a profit after 4 consecutive quarterly losses, thanks to a one-time gain linked to T-Mobile US Incorporated shares. Toyota's earnings are expected to surge, with November sales reaching a record, but there may be an impact from the recent Daihatsu scandal. Asia shares rise, tech results impress before jobs, markets wrap. Yahoo! Most Asian equity benchmarks rose as a rebound in U.S. shares extended into after-hours trading after a set of bumper results from tech giants. Japan's Azora Bank Limited fell as much as 19%, compounding the heavy selling seen on Thursday due to the firm's exposure to U.S. commercial property. From talking to monkeys to finding inner peace on Hong Kong's 4 trails. South China Morning Post. Zhang Weifeng, a 49-year-old trail runner, has completed the Hong Kong 4 Trails Ultra Challenge, a 298 km race across 4 trails in Hong Kong. One of the rules of the race is a ban on the use of headphones, which Zhang found to be the biggest obstacle he had to overcome. However, running without headphones allowed him to become more meditative and enjoy the solitude of the trails. Zhang hopes to continue participating in the race in the future and push himself to see how far he can go. Asian shares buoyed by U.S. tech bounce, payrolls in focus. Yahoo! Asian shares have risen following strong results from Amazon and Facebook, but investors are also cautious ahead of U.S. job figures that could lead to rate cuts. The MSCI Broadest Index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan increased 1.1%, while the Hang Seng Index rose 1.5%. The Nikkei increased 1%, which resulted in a weekly increase of 1.7%. Hong Kong property deals surge as stable interest rates lure buyers. South China Morning Post. The number of property transactions in Hong Kong rose 17% in January, with total sales increasing by 12.5% to 37.79 billion Hong Kong dollars, $4.83 billion, according to Centilene Property Agency. This is the 3rd straight monthly rise in sales in Hong Kong, with buyers being buoyed by the stable funding costs and the government's migration program. The increase in sales is also being attributed to the Capital Investment Entrance Scheme, which was launched in December 2022. Japanese retail investors pile billions into Indian equities. Bloomberg. Japanese retail investors are putting more money into Indian stocks, betting that India will be the next China. The total assets of India equity-focused investment trusts in Japan grew by 11% in January. This investment in Indian equities has extended India's lead over its peers as Japan's favored emerging stock market, thanks in part to tax-free investment accounts. In contrast, flows into Chinese shares dropped the most among the 14 emerging markets covered by Japan's data on international investment positions. Economists forecast that India's year-on-year economic growth will average more than 6% until at least Q2 2025, while China's is expected to remain below 5% during this period. Apple sales return to growth, but China woes continue. Nikkei Asia. Apple has reported a return to growth in its December quarter after a year of declining revenue. Revenue rose 2.1% to $119.6 billion, with sales of iPhones increasing 6% to $69.7 billion. However, the company faced flagging sales in Greater China, with revenue falling 12.9% to $20.8 billion. Apple CEO Tim Cook said he remained optimistic about China in the long term. The earnings report sent Apple shares down over 3% in extended trading. Apple faces competition from Huawei Technologies and other domestic brands in China as the overall smartphone market is squeezed by economic pressure. Hong Kong's new security law brings fresh anxiety to finance hub. Bloomberg. Hong Kong's plan to enact a domestic security law could have a chilling effect on open discussion of economic and policy issues, according to members of the finance community. The new law, which is more expansive than some business leaders were expecting, could damage Hong Kong's reputation as a global business hub, said Thomas Kellogg, a law professor at Georgetown University. The law's provisions against contact with overseas organizations could limit discussions by chambers of commerce, think tanks, and economic research groups, he added. The legislation comes as China is trying to eliminate dissent against the ruling Communist Party in Hong Kong. The law is generating uncertainty and concern among members of the business community, with some questioning whether they need to adjust their business practices in response, said an unidentified person at a global fund based in Hong Kong. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another edition of 6 Degrees Briefing with your favorite observer from the 6 Degrees world, Dr. Six. I hope you all have your thinking caps on because we have a lot to cover today. First up, we have a former UBS banker launching a hedge fund in Hong Kong, betting on a revival of stock sales in Asia. It seems like Pascal Gutierrez is confident that there will be a rebound in share sales, especially in markets like Japan, India, and South Korea. But let's not forget about Hong Kong and China, which are also expected to pick up steam in the coming years. So, get ready for some exciting times in the Asian stock market. Next, we have Lenovo, the world's largest PC maker, betting on AI to liven up the sluggish PC market. They believe that embedding AI chips in PCs will encourage customers to upgrade their devices, especially as many people are still using PCs purchased during the pandemic. And with partnerships with companies like Microsoft and Intel, Lenovo is paving the way for a new era of AI-powered PCs. In automotive news, Volkswagen is investing a whopping $1.8 billion in Brazil to electrify its vehicles. They're not holding back either, targeting all 4 of their Brazilian factories. It seems like the electric vehicle revolution is in full swing, and Volkswagen is making sure they don't miss out on the action. Now, let's move on to some sports news. Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, 2 of the greatest footballers of all time, were both absent or limited in their recent matches. Messi played only 7 minutes due to discomfort, while Ronaldo was ruled out altogether due to a calf injury. It's a shame we didn't get to see them in action together, but hopefully, they'll be back on the field soon. In the world of finance, Amer Sports, backed by Anta Sports, made a strong debut in New York, with shares rising by 3.1%. This Finland-based company raised a whopping $1.4 billion from its IPO, which will be used to fund its expansion plans in China. It's always exciting to see new players entering the market, especially when they have the backing of industry giants like Anta Sports. Moving on to the stock market, Hong Kong stocks have risen after China approved a new batch of online video games. This is a positive sign for the gaming industry, as it suggests a possible softening of the government's stance. Major stocks like Tencent, Alibaba, and Baidu all saw gains, indicating that investors are optimistic about the future of the gaming industry. Speaking of gaming, Chinese regulators have finally approved Tencent's mobile DNF game, which has been highly anticipated for years. This is a big win for Tencent, as they've been in need of new blockbusters to boost their pipeline. The approval also suggests that Chinese regulators may be returning to business as usual in the gaming industry, which is great news for gaming companies and investors alike. Now, let's shift our focus to earnings reports. Asia's tech giants, including Alibaba and SoftBank, are reporting their earnings amid a cautious backdrop after disappointing results from U.S. tech giants. It will be interesting to see how these companies performed, especially given the challenges they've faced recently. But let's not forget about Toyota, whose earnings are expected to surge thanks to record sales. However, there may be some impact from the recent Daihatsu scandal, so it's not all smooth sailing for the automotive giant. Moving on to the markets, most Asian equity benchmarks rose following strong results from tech giants like Amazon and Facebook. However, investors are also cautious ahead of U.S. job figures, as they could lead to rate cuts. It's a delicate balance between positive earnings and economic indicators, but for now, the markets seem to be holding steady. In Hong Kong, property deals surged in January, thanks to stable interest rates and the government's migration program. It seems like buyers are feeling confident and are taking advantage of the favorable conditions. This is great news for the real estate market, as it indicates a positive trend that could continue in the coming months. Now, let's talk about Japanese retail investors, who are piling billions into Indian equities. They seem to believe that India will be the next big emerging market, and they're putting their money where their mouth is. This investment in Indian stocks has outpaced flows into Chinese shares, which is quite interesting. It will be fascinating to see how this trend develops and whether India can live up to the hype. In tech news, Apple has reported a return to growth in its December quarter after a year of declining revenue. However, the company is facing challenges in Greater China, where sales have been flagging. But Apple CEO Tim Cook remains optimistic about China in the long term. It's a mixed bag for Apple, but they're not giving up on one of the world's largest consumer markets. Lastly, we have Hong Kong's new security law, which has caused anxiety among members of the finance community. The law's provisions against contact with overseas organizations could limit discussions on economic and policy issues, which is concerning for the business hub. It's a delicate situation, and it remains to be seen how businesses will adapt to these new regulations. Well, that's all the news we have for today, folks. It's been a wild ride, with everything from hedge funds to gaming to property deals. But now it's your turn. What are your thoughts on these stories? Do you agree with my analysis, or do you have a different perspective? Let's hear what you have to say. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.